deal in black and white. There's no gray. There's no no nuance. The hasbara, both the quality and or the lack of it, depending on how judgmental you want to be, is a huge, huge factor here. It's either the wrong people coming to interact in the United States or the wrong message, and the complexities and challenges of life here. And I don't care where you fall on the political continuum, you can't possibly understand Israel from a distance. And I'm sure some people would say if you live here for 50 years, you possibly can't understand it. But again, that's a whole other subject. And back again to link with this growth in Amutot, that also creates a lot of philanthropic confusion. What's important, what isn't important? How do I sift through this minefield of, everybody comes and everybody sounds compelling. If I only have X number of dollars, what's the right thing to do? So, in conclusion, what's the future? Sometimes I get up in the morning and I feel as if I'm standing on quicksand. Other times I think I've pushed the boulder up the hill a little bit. The current environment, and I believe any serious philanthropic organization, wherever it is, if it wants to appeal and be successful in the American philanthropic marketplace, is going to have to deal with what the current buzzwords are. And I don't mean to demean them by saying buzzwords. One is catalyst. People are looking for partnerships, for joint ventures. With rare exception, even Michael Steinhardt in Birthright has realized he cannot stand alone. Strategic investing. Everyone wants to feel we have X amount of dollars. We want to maximize the impact of those dollars, and we want to make sure that they're going to be used in the highest and best possible way. I'll repeat the word impact again because I hear it all over the place. Can I make a difference? Measurement. If you're going to have impact, if you're going to be a strategic investor, you must be able to measure. No more this state of Jewish tax, just give me the money, I'm going to try my best, and, let's hope everything will turn out all right. Transparency. I want to be able, meaning the public, want to be able to understand and feel confident that the money comes in, it goes where I say it's going to go, it comes out, it meets the targeted environment, which leads me to believe that while some instances when we talk about joint ventures, the government is a partner that is not always desired. Not always desired. And lastly, due diligence. And I believe that that's critical. Some NGOs and foundations feel that they are doing it. There's a certain innocence and naivete because they'll put themselves in the hands of someone either here on the ground or pardon me, but an institute that has maybe come at an issue from a certain point of view, and that's not necessarily the total range of due diligence.
What do you mean by due diligence?
Council, we take questions after.
Okay, 1 second at the end. The areas of interest that are really riding the top of the American Jewish community is an investment in the next generation, both domestically in wanting to look over your shoulder and making sure that there is another generation coming to secure the future of the local community, and a tremendous and very morally appropriate empathy towards vulnerable populations, children at risk, feeding the hungry, domestic violence, anyone who is vulnerable and on the edge of society. For Israel, on the other hand, interestingly enough, the number one issue for the Israeli society at the moment is the issue of demography. How Jewish, or will the Jewish state be Jewish, and how to address that. The only other major problem is risk. The organized communities in the United States, United Jewish communities, when you look at the range of needs every day in the domestic community, and the range of needs every day as presented by the government and the people of Israel, it's very difficult to address all of these philanthropic challenges at the same time. There is a need to respond to a changing marketplace, and how do you balance that risk with the human end product of the dollars that we raise? What is the answer? It's really currently very much of a lady or a tiger issue at the moment. It's certainly, frankly, the most complicated time I can remember, and I've been in this world really a long time. So with that, I'm very happy to take your questions, and I hope clarify anything I may not have made clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Carole. We already have two questions. Just a remark on the side to put the thing in perspective. I think you mentioned $250 million coming to the institutions in Israel this year. The Meyerhofs alone bequeathed to the National Gallery artworks last year of $300 million. One mega donor, one Jewish mega donor, gave $300 million to a non-Jewish cause. Irving Jacobs, Qualcomm, gave $110 million to the engineering faculty of University of California in San Diego. Another example of where the Jewish money goes. Study by Gary Tobin on mega donors at the end of the previous century. I think 6% of the gifts of above $10 million went to of Jewish mega donors went to Jewish causes, which gives us a feeling of what our playing field has become. Questions? First one, Dr. Herzl Fischmann, thereafter Dr. Gustavo Perednik, Chaim Ruth, Jacqueline Gall, Chaim Zohar. Oh my God, I cannot walk that fast. Sorry, Judith Passer. Yeah, and then what? Yeah, Merat Navon. Good. Okay, I hope I have everybody. Look, I have instructions from Elizabeth how to what to do with the microphone, because we are recording. We are recording this as always for the National Library. In order to help this, we ask you. There is a switch here on the microphone. Before you speak, turn it on, and then turn it off by flipping the switch on the bottom of the microphone. Herzl Fischmann. Herzl, take the mic.
We turned it on for you already.
What do you mean?
It's on. It's on.
What do you mean by due diligence? I didn't follow that.
I'll have to share this.
No, I give it to you.
Due diligence means really, in other words, before you would invest in a company, I mean, just use it as a business model. Presumably you would look at profit and loss. I mean, it's not analogous, certainly in the same terms, but you want to examine the philanthropic organization that you are investing in. Who's on the board of directors? Who are their partners? What are their funding sources? Are they succeeding? Do they show some measure of success in the particular thematic area that they're working in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you.
Gustavo?
Thank you for your excellent presentations with many challenges, and I would like to add one more, which could be more, I would say the Jewish leadership can be more accountable to the one I'm going to raise, because it has not to do with either intermarriage or lack of Israel-oriented education, which are harder to deal with, but to the use of funds which are collected for Israel, at the end of the day, against Israel. And my question has to do to what degree you are aware of this phenomenon. I saw it very clearly, not only talking with many donors, also in America, but having worked from within in the Jewish Agency, that happens something similar to what it's happening nowadays in campuses, that donors give money for a cathedra on Middle East studies in order to help the image of Israel, and finally these funds go in order to present again Israel as a demon. This happens also within the Jewish Agency. Many funds given to the Jewish Agency are finally used in order to present what it's called usually the Palestinian cause. And therefore many donors who see that could explain easily why it's better to help organizations and foundations where the money is much more accountable and they see directly the result. It's a kind of hijacking the noble cause for Israel, raising money for Israel, which is finally used against it. Is this a problem part of your awareness, or it's never dealt with?
Well, first of all, you're making a statement that, in general, I would take issue with. I don't know when you left the Jewish Agency, so maybe that would help inform me. But as someone who has spent my life as a fundraiser and bringing the money in, I'm very serious about the accountability issues. Okay, so you would have to show me, in all honesty, a very specific trail. Okay, so, and I'm old enough in my life to never say never. But the budgeting process, and I happen to have a tendency to be a micromanager, the budgeting process of the agency, I'm very comfortable with, number one. Number two, by the way, there are universities, there are amutot here, that when I say due diligence, before you invest, it's very important to understand, and I would open up, again, on transparency, very comfortably, the books of the Jewish Agency, particularly on the issue that you're speaking of.
I may have been misunderstood. I don't mean that it is not transparent, the budgeting, or the money goes wherever it has to go, and it very clearly. I mean, from a content point of view, once the money goes to this or that department, or this or that activity, the activity about which I can see there is no such a general awareness of, is an activity directed against Israel. If you wanted to give examples, of course I can give you many, not one, not from when I worked, from this year and last year and the previous year. But again, I'm not questioning the budgeting or how the money channeled or whatever. Everything is very transparent, and if I misexpress,
Well, good. It's just an
I'm just
opportunity
talking
then
about
for me to
content.
reinforce
Yeah,
it.
Gustavo, I think you should talk to Carole afterwards.
Yes.
If she's willing to, which I'm sure she is. Chaim Roth.
One example will be very relevant to this discussion today. I don't see why.
Look, we cannot, look, we have 7 people we cannot here monopolize discussions. We never do that. Chaim Ruth, afterwards Jacqueline Gall.
I'm an economist, and it's also about economists on the one hand and on the other hand.
Yeah.
So I'm on the one hand, I represent a medium-small foundation from Holland in Israel. On the other hand, I'm also dealing with the third sector.
Turn it on.
Oh, sorry.
It's on the bottom. It's a very hard
Yeah.
switch on the very, very bottom.
That's the third hand.
It's okay. It's okay. You don't need
Okay.
it.
So I'm on the one hand, I represent a medium-small foundation from Israel, from Holland. On the other hand, I'm also dealing with the third sector. And actually, if I might say quite bluntly, I think the foundations, if we look at 50, we have to all together, we have to rethink what we are doing, as well as the foundations, as the third sector, and the government. The foundations have to rethink that if we in this situation today, that there's people that are raising money for hunger or for poverty after 50 years of the existence of Israel, then maybe something is wrong. And maybe also I think that the foundations have also part of it. You mentioned billions of dollars have gone to Israel. Now each, and I'm also, my foundation is doing very good work. For sure I have to say that, but I really think that we are looking and we can very be satisfied on the individual allocations we made. But on the altogether, there is no strategy, as what you are saying. Also the foundations have not worked and have not pressed the government to ask them what is the social priority of the government. There's no pressure. And on the other hand, if we come, we have no social policy. So everybody is coming. So I now try to bring together to get a social policy that to your people, they say there are 10 priorities in education and there are 5 priorities in health. And then you can make your own choice and be influencer. You can have your own impact, what you were saying. So it is not so, in my opinion, not so difficult to have a strategy and to have still some individual who want to say, I did this. But as long as there is no general strategy, by both sides, you have 27,000 Amutot.
Well, just as a follow-up comment to that, because it's particularly painful from my point of view, because there are very precious resources because of a lack of coordinated strategy. And by the way, I would like to add interministerial, with one ministry having, one point of view on an issue, another ministry having another, making it, by the way, close to impossible to have any sort of strategy from the government level, because it's a Greek chorus working sometimes at counterproductively. So I'm not sure which direction. I believe it's probably from the private sector driving or trying to force the public sector to really come up with something, because it's a criminal waste of resources. Criminal waste.
Okay, thank you. Jacqueline Gall, I want, in order not to let David be frustrated, I'll give you one example, not from the Jewish Agency. Tel Aviv University raises money. She pays with that money people who call for the academic boycott of Israel. Tadja Reinhardt goes out in France asking universities to boycott Israel. That is what I mean, money, which is given for Israel and is used against Israel, to give you a very concrete example.
Okay. Thank you very much, Carole. I have been in North America, in Canada, as you know, for 5 years, and I'm a little bit acquainted about what you just said about slowly the money stays more in communities and less towards Israel, which was quite an experience for me to have seen that. And what I wanted to ask was, does the politicization of the Jewish communities overseas have an impact on how the money, or maybe they lack of giving, or because they said, oh, I don't agree with this government, I'm not ever going to give money to them. And the other thing, something very simple, very naive maybe, I'm here today in Israel because when I was a teenager in Australia, I went to Habonim, and I thought this made me who I am today, and I'm here today because of that. And when I was in Canada, I thought that was something that was lacking already there. And I felt it's not enough Jewish schools. I think there's something extra that one has to come and do. And I think between my mother and there was a saying of my mother, and justice, I choose my mother. Thank you.
Yes, the funding of Jewish identity camping, of youth groups, is not what it should be. Again, one of the exercises, not the exercise, the focal point of a retreat that we just had at the Sukhnut at the Dead Sea, is to really focus, to have come to the painful conclusion that we cannot have the same scope of activities, which is sort of like, starting to cut off fingers, because it's not that they're not important, but to say we really need, again, I don't want to trivialize the buzzword, more strategic investing, which means if securing the future of the next generation in the communities outside of Israel, and in working to focus on securing the future of Israel by investing in the young people here who have come from all over to cast their fate with Israel, that appears to be, I'm not making a prediction, but if you have to have a single focus, again, on what is complementary, the worldwide community challenge and a common challenge in Israel, if we are going to continue to be a strong and viable people, that kind of tends to ride the top of the list. And forgive me, I forgot the first part of the first question that you raised, because there was two. I got off on Habonim.
Okay. The politicization of the Jewish community.
Yes. You cannot separate it. Now, again, that's personally painful to me, because we're talking about the Jewish people. We're talking about the people of Israel. We should not be talking about government A or government B. And if the connection is to the Jewish people, if the connection is to the people of Israel, then on the I like the government, I don't like the government, I think I might like the government, shouldn't enter into the equation, because that's the focus is really on the wrong place. But for the people who look for the why not to do something as opposed to the why, it's a very big and inviting hook to hang your hat on.
Thank you.
Chaim Zohar.
Are there any groups which pressure the campaigns because of the policies of any Israel government which they oppose, be it a left government or a right-wing government? As there was some 10, 15 years ago pressure by what so-called religious streams to increase their shares, and some formula was found at that time. Question number two, for many years, the majority of the money raised came from a small percentage of givers, some 10% or so, or similar to that, while the rest came for some 80, 90%, a minority, a small part of the money. Is this the case now as well? And following what Manfred mentioned before...
Is this the third question? I want to make sure I have them all.
You decide.
Okay.
Shall I stop now? Shall I stop?
Third question.
No, go ahead, but I want to make sure I get to all of them.
All right. So it's the third question. Is there, what I wanted to ask is, you mentioned that the amount given to the JNF and the Jewish Agency for Israel dropped considerably. But was it compensated by contributions which are given to Israeli institutions, hospitals, universities, and so on, that the total amount of the money equal to what it was some 10 years ago? Did it go up or did it decrease? The fourth question, thank you.
Okay. On the JNF Jewish Agency versus you know, the individual organizations here, yes, the market share was lost by the national organizations, i.e. the organizations that tend to operate as a collective distribution system. The total, going by the way outside of the organized system, that was the $1,462,000,000, I believe. I have to look at my note, but I think that was the figure. That has risen tremendously. So that's the total contributions to Israel have risen. Again, you can use the proportion in the growth of Amutot because there are more people, I'm telling you, every single day in a community with the baskets saying, please, please, please fill it. So you're absolutely right. The market share of the umbrella organizations have gone down at the same time that there's been a growth of dollars coming in to Israel. The 10% of givers, maybe it's up by a little, but not much. It's essentially what that's been since the beginning of time, really since the beginning of time. And again, another challenge for us. But whatever we've been doing these many years, and UJA was founded in 1939, so this is a very long history of essentially that percentage being the same. And on the religious streams, which you used as an example, but it could be larger from a political prism, not just from the religious streams. Yes, it's a very issue-sensitive world, a very issue-sensitive world. So if I care about the reform movement and I feel that that's getting short shrift, and my rabbi stands up and gives a sermon that adds fuel to the fire, that's going to play itself out philanthropically. The same thing politically. Again, people not being able to make the distinction between the needs, the social welfare or the needs on the ground in terms of the people of Israel versus the government. I mean, you know, we're not contributing to the fabric of the government. Although I suppose one could make an argument on the money is fungible, but so the answer is like yes, 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 yes to all three. They're all true, and they all have an effect on the marketplace.